What's good everyone, it's your boy yadiiiigg 4 eyes 2 G's here, and shout out to this comment from OrcFX. He said he wanted me to talk about the sales of DaBaby's album, and I noticed it got a bit of likes, so I did a bit of research. I dug up the sales, and I also dug up some other Spotify analytics that I know you guys like for me to break down, so let's get into it.
Creeping, Vegas trip for the weekends, wash away my sins on Sundays, Magic City every Monday, big beans I'm gonna chase, no it look like I hit the runway, the wrong path I almost chose, now high design is my logos, Team Z can find me in the Hamptons, on the trenches taking my chances, the pressure raised I'm raising my standards, I'm a loose candy bandit on transit.
So if you're unaware, DaBaby's new album Blame It on Baby is projected to sell 130 to 150k all in first week. Now whenever I do a video like this, people always ask how I get these sales, considering the album hasn't been out for a week. These are just projections, so they're not the final first week sales, but the music industry literally has so much data that it's pulled over the years, so they can make these projections so accurate and they're rarely far off. So they might be 5k lower or 5k higher here or there, but they'll be around that ballpark, so you can trust they'll be accurate. Now I want to be clear, these numbers are a W for DaBaby. Quite frankly, anything over 120k is a W for DaBaby. And I also want to say that over the last couple months, I've seen an increasing amount of hate for DaBaby. Complaints that he sounds the same every single song, or that his music is mid, and even for this album, I've seen a lot of comments straight up hating on it. And even me, I can admit, I'm not really a big fan of him. I like a couple songs, Sugar is cool, Bop is cool, his track with NBA Youngboy of this album is decent, but as I always say, the discussion of sales and quality are two very different things. And if we're talking about numbers, I have to be honest, this is a W. And when I look at the other analytics for DaBaby, they're also looking pretty good. For starters, his monthly Spotify listeners have basically non-stop risen over the last year. Although that isn't too surprising, it shows that people are constantly listening to his music. And even though the hype from his biggest hit yet, Sugar, has died down, he's been able to keep fans around, keep them engaged past that one big hit of his, and people are streaming his albums. He currently sits at around 26 to 27 million monthly Spotify listeners, whereas he was around 6 million in May of last year. Make no mistake, that's very impressive and is more than the likes of Lil Uzi, A$AP Rocky, A Boogie, etc. Furthermore, every song from his album currently sits in the top 200 most played on Spotify in the US region, and on top of that, he's had quite a number of songs that have been playlisted in some extremely popular playlists, such as Rap Caviar, Global Top 50, and Today's Top Hits, which is always a good sign and means not only that the music is connecting, but it also shows that Interscope, his label, are putting money into the album to make sure it gets that push and that promo it needs. I do want to say that these Spotify analytics are accurate as of the 18th of April. I do not have access to the current data of this moment, but they should be roughly the same. However, I do have to level out this discussion. I'm not going to sit here and act like this means DaBaby took a huge W with this album. Although 130 to 150k is definitely a W, the reality is these numbers are not an improvement on Kirk, his last album, which sold 145k first week. And whilst the similar numbers aren't that surprising, considering that Kirk was just released 7 months ago in September and Baby on Baby was released only 6 months before that in March, so to be able to drop 3 albums in the space of 13 months and keep consistent with your sales is a good sign. Again, I'm not going to gas up DaBaby and act like this is a huge W and these numbers are something to write home about, mainly because number one, they aren't an improvement on Kirk. If these numbers came back and DaBaby sold 30, 40, 50k more than Kirk, sure, he took a huge W, but him selling roughly the same as that album, I can't pretend that's a huge W. And secondly, branching off that point, this is really only the start of the battle for DaBaby and only part of the story. Really, the question now becomes, will we see the album have longevity? Will we see the album have mainstream hits and get plaques like his other projects have? Only once we answer those questions and find that out, will we be able to properly say whether this album was a success. So yes, these numbers aren't a flop, they're good and a W for him, but I'm more interested in the long-term cycle of this album and see if it lives up to the performance of his other projects. DaBaby has only been out for a year and some change now, and dropping so much music in such a short period of time is a dangerous move. So that's when I say with this project right here, we really have to wait and see how it performs over time. Does it have hits? Does it have longevity? Etc, etc. But that's all from me today, guys. Make sure to let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Also, I do put a lot of effort into getting the Spotify analytics for you guys, so if you could like the video, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, all that good stuff, that will be much appreciated. Also, I want to give a couple quick shout outs from the gram. Shout outs to a whole lot of Red, shout outs to Lil Lungs, shout outs to Stets on it now. Shout out to you guys for following me, appreciate that. If you guys don't follow your boy on Instagram at yadiiiigg, make sure to. Also, you can see my Cardi, Uzi, Travis merch pieces on screen right now. Link in the description to copy if you're interested, and there are more videos of mine on screen. Make sure to check them out if you haven't.